D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die was originally released in 2014 as an Xbox One launch exclusive, and I swear despite the fact that it was, Microsoft didn't advertise it much despite the fact that they published the goddamn thing, and it was made by Axis Games, with the director being Square65, generally known mostly for his work on Premonition 1 and 2. Like I said, despite being Xbox One exclusive, Microsoft didn't really do much advertise it strangely, and ignore the Season 1 in the title on the store pages because that's the only amount of the game, because this game's unfinished. I'll explain later. The main premise is that David Young, a private investigator from Boston, his wife was murdered under a string of murders linked to a drug called Real Blood, but due to a bullet wound, he can't remember the details of her murder, just the last thing she said, which was, "Look for D." With objects called Mementos, he is able to travel back in time to when the Mementos gain in significance, and pretty much find clues to investigate during that time period, which is pretty much the main gimmick of this game, of David going to a certain point in time in order to try and find out info on who exactly D is. While this game does have a decent amount of characters when it comes to the narrative, only a few of them really forward the main narrative. A bunch of them exist mostly for side content you could do in this game, and there is plenty of it, but if you're just looking for the main narrative, you'll probably complete this game in about 2.5 hours to 3 hours, all things together, because generally main narrative isn't that long. And despite mentioning the whole gimmick of going back into Mementos, it's pretty much automated to the story, so it's not as if you find different things that constantly jump through time. No, you go to places where the story wants you to and investigate those sections specifically. And while side characters do exist, honestly, they're kind of a case of hit and miss with how generally Square65 is known for writing these characters. Well, he'll generally take an idea for a character, kick that up to about 1,000, and maybe sprinkle in a tiny bit of something else as generally how he writes the characters when it comes to side characters in his games. Like, these characters, you may find them endearing with how over the top they are with the quirk they have, or you may just find them completely annoying and want nothing to do with them, in which case you can just forward the main plot of the game. But like I said, it means you're skipping out on a lot of stuff as a result.
I ask you something.
I don't need your opinion. After all, I have Suki. The sunglasses in particular are strikingly progressive, don't you think? This is avant-garde. The epitome of my next theme.
Overall, I do like the mystery that's going on, and I do like the fact that the player does have all the tools to figure out what exactly is going on in the situations before David Young himself spells it out for the player. Just the fact that if you are aware enough, you can put together the mystery. Even like I said, where you find the clues, David Young will put stuff together and generally spell it out for the audience later. But like I said, pay attention, and you'll know what's going on even before he does. Now for the main gameplay, with this being an adventure game, with you essentially in this PC board typically, clicking around trying to find clues, although the Xbox One version did have Kinect controls. So you try to find clues and interview people, trying to find information, everything. And there are points where you do have dialogue options, with you generally having a synchronization rate if you pick the answer that David Young would say, which kind of feels weird. There's also sometimes where you have dialogue options where David does not say them out loud, so the characters just respond to what you click on, but they're not. But David himself doesn't talk to them. So it is weird how it's handled at points. But when it comes to actually trying to find the clues, it's you just trying to notice the details in the environment, or you can use mechanic vision, which will immediately highlight, pretty much spell out to you certain objects you can interact with, or major objects, but it's based on a meter that you have to constantly refill. Speaking of meters, David also has stamina. You need to constantly eat in order to keep him going because he has a very high likelihood of passing out. There is an in-game shop that you can use to buy food, but you'll generally also just find food in the environment, keep your stamina up and everything. So it's not too much of an issue or really an issue at all to really kind of keep your stamina up. But you can see what certain activities do take up stamina and everything. Even the most minor ones do that. And there's some cases where there are some food objects that you can eat, but they don't refill your stamina. Instead, they may refill your vision. So it can be weird in those instances where it'd be like, oh, coffee, that'll help me, and it doesn't. But an alcohol does. Riddle me that one. You also have a health meter, I guess health points, because there are some sense of environment that may be dangerous you should be interacting with, but they're also for the big action moments where you now see QTE prompts on the bottom that show up in order to tell you what to look out for ahead in order to progress. And these moments are, I would say, probably the highlight of the game. Not only just frantic, they're just very fun sequences just in general with the action going on and how they manage to try and get a action scenes across. On top of the fact that I love that a bunch of the animations have fail animations that you can actually watch if you screw up, or at this point probably intentionally, because these QTEs are very generous. But I love the fact that they add in fail animations because I love it when a game gives you fail animations for failing certain QTE stuff. I mean, I wish more games did that nowadays.
Ow! Shit!
You also have side investigations, aka the side quests in this game, where you can pretty much have more interactions with the side characters to learn more about them, or to just, in some cases, interact more with their quirk that's down up to 1,000. And a bunch of them do come with minigames based on the activity they want you to do, although there's one minigame in particular I remember that for some reason, they let you start it, even though you can't complete it unless you have the full area available for David to roam. So I find it weird how they let you start the minigame just for you to inevitably fail because you don't have enough space to fully do the minigame. So there's some weird quirks like that, but the minigames do range what they do. Like, one was just about trying to observe the environment very quickly, one was about trying to mess with clovers, and one involved just being a quiz on how well do you know airplanes. So there's variety depending on the quirk of the character they interact with side investigations. Or some characters don't need a side investigation much or minigame, you just learn more about to see the character of David and who he's talking to, just have fun interaction, especially with when it comes to Forrest, Kaysen, and just the way David treats food in those cutscenes, side investigations and everything.
Take your skills to the next level. The Ministry of Justice is here to support your every endeavor. Your head may be empty now, but we're going to change that. Now let's get started. Initializing the aircraft test maniac level.
Mentioned earlier, you have a shop, and that shop is run by Amanda. We're able to buy a bunch of stuff that can heal you or recover your vision and stuff like that, or a bunch of costumes for the characters, some of which are directly references to the Premonition, but a bunch of which are new costumes or palette swap outfits, which are very nice to have since they're constantly in the gameplay, since the whole game is in engine everything, so they constantly show up in everything for the characters. Although, when it comes to the game's recaps and stuff, you'll be back to default outfits for those instances, but it's just nice to have a couple costumes, It's a nice cool bonus, and there's a lot of them. Also get gifts for Amanda in order to erase her affection as well. I just wish the menu for the shop wasn't so awkward. It feels a bit awkward to maneuver with a mouse. Feels like, I'm not gonna lie, it feels probably like it was made for the Connect. If it was the Connect, it feel like it'd be awkward, like one of those weird menu connects which are like swipe to make it go to the left, to the right, everything. So it just, those menus just feel weird in particular, and I wish there was easy to make them feel better. On top of also some of the facial hair cosmetics for David just don't look great. They're radical and have very diverse design, but some of them just like I really don't want these. But A fun thing is, there are several cosmetics in this game, to be shirts, that are actually themed around several Xbox IPs as well. I mean, some of the footage you see David wearing a Killer Instinct shirt, for example. So there is fun stuff like that since the game was initially published by Microsoft, or the PC port was published by Playism. Because the game is relatively short and split up across 3 episodes, it is very easy to replay and go for things that you miss, and there's one sequence I believe that actively requires you to constantly redo it over and over in order to get like a bunch of costumes to complete the quest itself. So there is a bunch of stuff like that. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff to do gameplay wise and replay value to redo them, as well as the fact that each episode is generally ranked, including especially the big action set pieces, do have synchronization rates and everything. They want to shoot for the best, you want a higher score, and get more achievements. There is a bunch of stuff to do. Just if you just blitz the main story, there's just not much to it, because this was supposed to be episodic structure, but I'm pretty sure they released all 3 episodes together, making it kind of redundant and everything. And because I said earlier, this game's unfinished because you'll just, I don't know what's a cliffhanger, it means any investment you have in an area of characters will just come to a complete abrupt halt, and there's nothing else. Because Forza 5 left Access Games in around 2016 and said how there would be no more episodes for D4. In fact, this is a point that if you ever played a game Delayed Premonition 2, there's actually a reference to the fact of D4 just being essentially canceled and not having any more content. So clearly he's still upset about that, considering what's the case with the Premonition 2, but for this game, it ends on a massive cliffhanger, so if you do put the mystery together and everything, you won't have an actual conclusion. So I said, ignore the Season 1 title, because this is all you're getting. There's not going to be any more game to have. It is unfinished games, which I know some people felt was kind of a dick move to then port it to PC and everything because of unfinished nature, but it's better to have a PC port exist rather than just be a title that's only on the Xbox One and then nowhere else. So in case that goes kaput, then there would be nothing left. But this is a good type of report. What I also want to highlight is the fact that the text in this game has a freaking outline. Now the outline exists mostly to coincide with the cel-shaded art style of this game, but the text has outlines. I'm pretty sure I recently made a video where I mentioned how developers don't use outlines for the text, and they don't, but this game actually did. Granted, you can't control the text size because that's based on the character's emotional state. When the character starts screaming, the subtitles become huge to match their energy, so you can't manually change that yourself. But they have outlines, means they stand out for the environment, which I just appreciate that by default. That's great. Wish more games had outlines or the option for outlines for text and subtitles. D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die is a fun mystery game, though it's one of those things that, can I really recommend a game that's completely unfinished entirely? Like, you'll enjoy what's there, you'll enjoy probably the side content of characters if you find them endearing with their quirks, but if you're here for the main narrative, you'll just be left unsatisfied because there is no conclusion, there is no ending, and there probably never will be one because the odds are very low because, well, Access Games has moved on a lot since then, especially Forza 5, who hasn't been in the company since like 2015 or so, so this is a fact that it's one of those cases where, can one recommend a game that isn't finished and won't ever be finished? I don't know, it's up to the person. So I guess at best, definitely wait for a sale for it, but otherwise, I just don't know what to even say. I don't that's one right again. That's like, oh, this game is great, it's enjoyable. It's also unfinished, there's no conclusion, there's no ending, so good luck with that, you know? So I had to put that warning all over the place to highlight there's a conclusion, so if you're fine with that, this is an enjoyable game and everything. If you're not fine with that, then probably stay away, because that will not suddenly change, especially in the many years it's been since D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die has been relevant. At best, the most I got was an April Fool's image that was called D5 Dark Dreams Don't Die Deadly. That I believe was just a freaking image where they just added in Francis York Morgan from Deadly Premonition into an image into the freaking game, and that's it. Just a weird April Fool's prank, and I'm not even sure it's even the point of it. It's not even funny, but it was a thing. So, like I said, if you find the game being unfinished, not having an actual conclusion, then you'll be satisfied. If you want the main narrative to have an actual conclusion ending, then you will be left just completely unsatisfied, especially since how dramatic the cliffhanger it ends on is. So the point where you'll definitely be like, no, I want to see that. I want to see what happened there. But you'll never will. That's all I gotta say about D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die. That is all. Good day.
Go, Boston, go!
Nothing says Boston quite like this. There must be a baseball fan on board.